Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here in Lincoln, and I hope that you return the favor when you guys visit Ann Arbor in a few weeks. A sporting event. I want to explain why would a faculty member in the right mind why would a faculty member want to stop what they're doing and get into educational technology. And to explain that, I have to explain what I do for a living. I am, in fact, a meteorologist. I will admit that on sunny days. What I like to do is take students into the field. What I like to do is have students have a one-on-one, hands-on experience in the field. And I thought I would just share some of at least a few of those experiences with you here, because I do take students. I believe that science is a contact sport, and best studied by being in situ with it. So here, for example, is a situation a year or so ago in Oklahoma, where I take students out and we chase tornadoes. Now, the trick of being a tornado chaser is to be the chaser and not the chasee. On the other hand, when you get into the situation that you are the chasee, many interesting things happen, and I want to share one of them with you. So here's the town of Oberlin, Kansas, northwestern Kansas. And I had a team of 3 vehicles with undergraduates in them located on Highway 36 just to the east of Oberlin, Kansas. And this was a day of extremely high winds. Storms were forming and moving from south-north at a rapid speed. And we positioned ourselves here because it was sort of a relatively high spot. We could, from there, watch what was going on. Please understand, do not try this at home. We had in it with us not only ourselves, but Texas Tech was there. I understand people from the University of Nebraska were there. Many universities is part of Vortex 2, making observations. We had more computer equipment in our vehicles than many small colleges. Radar dishes on the back of long tractor trailers. We were well equipped. It was like a small army out there. And even with that kind of information, there's still surprises that happen when you're in the field. Now, I'm going to just walk you through here the 3 vehicles. A tornado forms to our south. There, that's my graphic of a tornado. And moving north at a rapid rate of speed. Now, our job at this point, trained as we were on how to respond to such crises, we panicked. And the 3 vehicles then did things, each of them drove in a different speed in different directions. I'm going to show you how each of the vehicles responded here in the path of the tornado, just to give you a sense of what happened here. Now, I'm going to show you quickly the videos from the car number 1. That would be the car here on the right to the east, and also video from the car on the left. I was in the car in the center. So let's just start with the car on the right here, and remember that they're driving in the path here of this tornado.
Holy smokes. Look at this precip gravity. You guys seeing the rotation in the precip and cloud field here? T1?
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
We have precip rapidly moving westward while the base of the cloud rapidly moves eastward.
So that's a tornado.
Okay, we got a tornado on the ground directly to our south. We may need to move east here. This is very close, guys. You may want to move east also.
Come back, grab the camera. Let me know when you want me to go. Oh, in the top.
Now notice they've not yet started to move because it hasn't struck them yet that they are, in fact, directly in the path. This is a fairly large tornado. You can see multiple vortices in it. Now they start to move. a teachable moment. Yeah, the second vehicle. Whoops, what happened? The second vehicle.
Did you turn the camera upside down or the car turned upside down?
Oh no, the car was fine. The car. Oh, somehow I'm not getting this to play though I want to. It's going back to that. I don't want to do that. Oh, I won't show you the second one, but let me just go back to this diagram here because just to tell you, reassure you what happened. So we had this experience. Now I was in the second car, and I didn't make it. So at this point, I could not see from me to the first row here. And I had no options but to take the car and turn it sideways across the highway as this tornado was coming at me. I could not see anything except these branches were slapping against the window and throwing off, and the next thing was coming against the window and fly off, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if there's a cow in that field, this is it. And thinking the car might not stay stable, I was planning all kinds of things. I should tell you, by the way, that my brother and my sister are also meteorologists. And we have a standing pact that if one of us dies prematurely, the others get rights to the last photo. It's going to be a doozy. So, desperately trying to take that photo. It was too dark. The camera wouldn't work. The storm passed by, and obviously I survived. Did a little victory dance. And there was straw embedded in the side of the car. That's how strong the winds were. The cars measured winds in excess of 180 miles an hour. Those which were further away, mine was probably at a higher rate of speed. So I survived. I took the car back to the rental company. Any problems? So that's precisely why I do this, is that I would love to be able to take all my students, no, I would like to take some of the students and put them in the path of the tornado, but for the most part, I like to be able to bring back to the classroom these sorts of experiences. How do we carry back to the classroom the excitement of the field that we're in? And what kinds of tools can we use in that? Now, some of you I see have laptops, and I will come back to this in a moment. You can log in and play along with this as I demonstrate how this tool works. This tool was created in a grant from the National Science Foundation to think about how is it that we can improve the large classroom. The economics of the university are such now that we are likely to teach more and more large classrooms. And I argue that if we're going to do that, it behooves us, it's our responsibility to raise the bar in those classrooms to make them a more active learning space, and that's what we're trying to get at here with this tool. So there is great amounts of literature available which talk to the fact that the large lecture hall is not the desired learning environment. And few would argue that, I think. It's a great place to deliver information. It's not necessarily a great place to stimulate learning and even thinking. Critical thinking. So, and I point to many good articles on this. There's a good book I'm reading at the moment, What's the Use of Lectures, which describes in some detail what the problems are with lectures. So my quick list of what to do in the classroom is here. In order to engage students, I must, more than deliver content, I must ask questions. I must ask challenging questions which make you think. And then, after asking that question, I should expect everyone to respond, not just a few vocal people in the front, but everyone should respond to invest, basically, in the answer. Having done that, I should be expected then to give feedback to the answers that you provide. You have made the effort to put your money in the vending machine. I should produce the Snickers in response, basically. We must give them feedback, and beyond that, we should expect feedback from the students, that they should be able to ask us questions during class. This doesn't happen in large classrooms often because, first of all, if it did, it would happen with just a 4 or 5. It doesn't happen from the people in the back row who maybe are a little less confident in the course and unwilling to offer the questions out loud. So we have to find ways to allow that to happen. We should facilitate what I call rehearsal, as peer instruction, and everything I've done is stolen, to be blunt. I don't read the educational literature, but I go and listen to talks. And if I hear a good idea, I just code it into this tool. So this is for Eric Mazier at Harvard. He comes up with peer instruction. What we want to do is be able to pose a question as the instructor, be able to view the responses and decide at that point whether we want to show the responses or have the students break into groups, discuss the answer, and then vote again after they've talked to each other, because there's probably great value in people learning from each other. Students learning from each other often is more effective than learning from me talking in front of the classroom. So these are sort of the criteria I'm using when I created this tool. I've done surveys of the faculty at the University of Michigan. I've said this before, but in 32 years I've been teaching at the University of Michigan. Only once did another professor come into my classroom. I swear to God he was lost. We don't often view each other teaching, so we don't know how each other teaches, yet we teach probably based on the way that we were taught and or the way that we think our colleagues teach. So here are the results of this survey that I've done. How do we teach the large classes? Well, you can see the vast majority of people just like traditional lecture. The sage on the stage approach is very, very popular. What we don't do is, the red over here, is classroom debates, role-playing, class exercises, the things you might just consider to be active learning methods. It's not easy to do in a large classroom, and often we have this weight of trying to get through all this material because we promised we'd get through all this material for the next course. So for lots of reasons, we tend to stick with the traditional lecture, which has been well shown to be largely, modestly effective. So our goals are to increase channels of communication. How can I sit here and know what you're thinking? How can I sit here and know whether you understand what I'm talking about? How can I promote you to ask more questions during class, or to expand the kinds of questions I can ask you? And to then, at the end of the day, be able to monitor your performance to see whether you are doing the things I hope you'd be doing in class. These are sort of the challenges that we have in the large classroom. Now, this is meant to be a lecture as well, but by the way, at any point along the way you have questions, just yell them out. We're not going to use technology in here. We are adults. So don't be shy about just yelling those questions out. I'll make fun of you, but please yell them out. So what we tried to do in building lecture tools is, first thing was I started teaching a course called in climate change with another professor, Ben Van de Vloem at the University of Michigan. And we tried using clickers in class, and they were good, but students never use the word clicker in a sentence without the word lame and also accompanying that sentence. Because they understood that most faculty were simply using them for attendance. And they caught on right away that they were paying, $40 to $60 for this device to tell the instructor they made it to class. And they were not happy with that. So I thought, we can do better. So I started building a student response part of this picture. And in it, we made it so that we could ask more kinds of questions. I teach meteorology. I would like to be able to show throw the picture of a weather map on your screen, have you respond, draw on that map, be able to show those in the front of the room instantly. That's what I wanted. And that's what we've been trying to do here by making sort of the next generation what a student response system could be. And on top of that, then everything that happened after that is nothing of mine, but the students came to us and said, look, if we're going to bring the laptop in, could we also do this or do that? So I'm not going to take any credit. It's all the ideas from other students and other faculty who said, well, let's add it so the students can take notes. So you upload your slides, the students can take notes synchronized with the slides. You can post questions to them in the process of that. For the student response, the students can ask questions during class. And either you can answer them after class, or you can have a teaching assistant, if it's a large class, answer them in real time. And the beauty of that was that students could ask questions and get responses, and everyone gets to see the question and answers, but they don't see who asked the question. And that simple act has changed my life dramatically in the classroom, because from previously when I had 4 or 5 students that raise their hand and ask questions, now 2/3 of the students in my class are asking questions, which is sobering. All these years I've been teaching, I thought I just nailed those lectures because nobody asked questions. But all these kids had questions, they just had no way to ask me, or they were uncomfortable asking me during class. Now they can. And then beyond that, well, all right, well, how can we tie to the other things we need for class, like the textbooks and the podcasts and such? And we're moving towards that as well. I'll describe some of that here. And finally, analytics. So, okay, Johnny comes to me after a few weeks and says, I'm trying so hard in your class, and I'm getting poor grades. And I can actually pull up a sheet and say, well, you know what, you only came to half the lecture, you only answered this many questions, you got 2 of them right, here's your answer for 1 of them, you didn't ask me about that. I have a lot of data now on that student to help guide them afterwards. And going beyond, later on I'll get onto this, but we're going to the place where we're actually ingesting many of the textbooks from publishers and connecting that with lecture tools. So the day is coming like I don't even know whether they open the textbook or not. Whether I should or not is a whole other question. But I've got tenure, so I think it's there's value in me knowing this if my job is in fact to try to help students achieve their learning objectives. So this is it. What is Lecture Tools? It's a collaborative effort by faculty and students to create a product that we think would improve the classroom, and particularly the large classroom. This is not something handed down by our IT department. It's literally people who are going to use it the next day in class trying to figure out what we need in the classroom. And this is why I travel around the country right now talking to faculty, is understanding what is it that you do in the classroom, what tools could you use to improve your classroom, and if it's a great idea, then I'll steal it. You know, I just put it right into the software because I love this process of collaborative thinking about what we're going to need in the future. You know that in 5 years, if not now, students are going to walk into the classroom armed with some kind of internet-enabled device. You know, it may not be your laptop. It might be the iPad 6. It could be, gosh knows what it could be. It could be built in your glasses for all I know. So really, we're going to ignore that? I think not. I think it's time now for us to do the research to understand what are the good practices and guidance in using those tools in the classroom. You, as the instructor, have new powers with this tool. First of all, you upload your PowerPoint into the system. It creates the slides for you, as we show here. And at the same time, we actually take all the words off your slides and stick that in the database so your slides are searchable. I'll come back to that idea. After you've done that, you can rearrange the slides in here, and you then can create interactive activities. You are encouraged to ask questions to the students to measure whether they understand what your content is. And you can create questions and embed them into this tool. And when you're happy with the combination of slides and interactive activities or animations and other things you might include in your lecture, you can then publish the lecture, which makes it available for the students in the class. And also, importantly, you can hide slides. So maybe the slide contains content you don't want them to see until a little bit down the road because you're going to talk about that, ask them a question, and you've got the slides standing by to show some logic behind the answer. You can hide slides as you wish. So this is the concept here, what we're doing for the instructor. And the instructor has the power then to ask a wide range of questions. First is the image-based question. The reason I did it in the first place was, I have maps of weather. You may have maps of geological strata or body parts, or who knows what you might have for your field that you want to ask a question about and have the student be able to identify a portion of that graph or image. Free response. This is important. I would like to ask questions of the students and then make sure that I also ask them, why did you choose what you did? Which is way more interesting than what they actually picked. So asking them their logic allows them to type a sentence or two, and you're able to show that they randomly show sentences from the students in the front of the room and give the feedback about what you liked about an answer or not. And ordered lists. Again, going back to the climate change course, there's lots of issues that are not black and white, well-known answers. So often it's an opinion. And so you give them a list from most to least important, and they have to judge them, go through on their own thinking about what's the most to least important, and we can show those results in the front of the room, and that often engenders a great amount of debate in the class about what's right and what's wrong. Here's an example. Now, if you had gone back, if you had logged in and were playing along, this would be, as in class at this point, I have a question for you. And I start the activity just to demonstrate. I haven't, this is genius, I think. So I travel a lot. It occurred to me I should be asking this question every time I go to. So rank get the list of Lincoln restaurants, have you guys rank them from most to least value to you. Then I know where to go for dinner. That would be sweet. So if you had a laptop open and you had logged in or playing along, you know, if you like the Valentinos, you just drag that to the top of the list, and you think South Char Grill is the worst. You go take it to the bottom, you rearrange the list of the way you think is best, and then we do sort of an averaging of all the students in the class, and we'll show what the group thinking is about which is most to least important in the class. And usually I leave some time for this. Now, as this is happening, right now I am mirroring my screen with the projector. Normally I wouldn't do that. Normally what I can do is take this screen and move it on what you see, and then I would see, go back here, I would see this screen, which is sort of the which is the window, the dashboard that I get as an instructor. And with that window, I can now see how many people have responded. Well, nobody's responded because you probably didn't log in, but I can see how many are responded here. I can see if I had a right answer. I would see how many are right. I can decide then, before I go on, whether to show the results or have the discussion continue. So I have a fair amount of power here in being able to modify and control what's happening in the class as we go forward. And likewise, we can ask multiple choice questions, and you can indicate with multiple choice which answer is correct, as you can with a clicker, and keep track of who's answered what in class. Another activity, for example, staying on the same theme, is I was presuming if you reorder the list of restaurants, there's probably one on the list that you didn't, that you would add to the list because it's your favorite. So here's an example of a free response. I'd have you just type in, well, okay, what is your favorite restaurant? And you would be able to type that in here, and I'd show them results, and we talk about them. Likewise, at the bottom, notice that since not all students have access to a laptop, we make it so that you can also text your answer in using the texting feature at the bottom there. And here's an example of a question that was asked, I'm guessing, in a biology course, because I have no idea what that question means, being a meteorologist. And the answers that they got, allowing the instructor then to go through these answers and talk about the positive parts of the answer or what they'd add to an answer, give them the feedback because you're telling them what you're looking for. This is helpful to them. They're getting ready for exams. They want to know, what are you looking for? How are you grading? Well, here's a way for you to give them that kind of feedback on the fly during class and reinforce their understandings in class and the opportunity to get that sort of self-assessment. Another activity, just on the same theme. Okay, in this case, it's okay. Going a step further, you told me where your favorite restaurant is. Where is it? I'm going to go there for dinner. So you'd be able to then put a dot on the map as a student, and I would accumulate the dots and be able to show the dots on the screen, and you probably come up with hopefully better questions than this, but you imagine visual information that you could glean from this and have the students put their opinions of where the favorite restaurant is. Would be a dot, suddenly be a dot on this map, and I'd be able to show the results if anybody had in fact had responded to that. And here's an example of that being used in my class where I'm talking about hurricanes and storm surge. This is, in fact, Hurricane Katrina. And you can see, well, having already described to them that the winds, move in a counterclockwise way around a hurricane, and this particular hurricane is moving pretty much from south to north, the argument would be that, well, the winds coming onshore here plus the storm moving onshore here, winds in this area would probably be the strongest, and that's where we worry most about storm surge, whereas on this side, winds are going to be coming off the land in the opposite direction of the storm, so those winds probably are not going to produce as much storm surge. And that's precisely why NOAA, by the way, forecasts that Mobile and such were in high danger during Hurricane Katrina and didn't give quite as much attention to New Orleans, because we forgot the fact that the winds are going to drive the water back into Lake Pontchartrain here and then flood New Orleans from the backside after that lake got more full than it could hold. So this is the kind of discussion you can lead in class with. You can't do that with a clicker. You can't do that by raising your hands. This is the kind of things you can do well beyond what's available now from the commercial companies. Other things that are, I think, of interest in the class. On the right, I can be showing slides, and it's not uncommon that the student will be lost. And so they can click underneath their slide, a little button here that says, confusing, I'm confused. I call it the WTF button. No, I don't know. We're lost. And that does a couple of things. One, it marks, for the student, it marks those slides they found confusing, and they're going to be able to filter later about which slides are confusing and just show those slides. Likewise, they can also indicate with a blue flag there, this is a bookmark, this is an important slide. So they can have both confusing slides and those slides I think are important and filtered by each, and they'll print out the slides and any notes they took along with that using those filters. Also, you in the front of the room then have a dial, basically, showing you how many students are lost at the moment or confused. What a superb way to communicate. Now, they are able to tell you that they're confused. Now, you might still ignore them. That's your call, but at least you know. You have some idea, and maybe you don't respond in that particular lecture. Maybe you wait till after lecture, go back through the slides and see where students are lost, and then decide you might want to revisit that information in the subsequent lecture or in some other way. So it's increasing the amount of communication between you and the students.
Question.
Oh, I didn't see it. Yes.
So do you have a sense as to how selectively the students use the bookmark feature to highlight particular material for later retrieval versus a blanket, oh, this must all be good, so I'll just highlight everything?
That's a good question. I don't have those statistics yet, but we're at the end of this semester. This is the first semester this has been available.
Okay.
So we are collecting that kind of information. And I mentioned this earlier today, but we have just gigabytes of data. And we are always looking for other researchers who really do study the educational literature who might want to work with us to help study how these things are used and how are they cross-listed with other things the students are doing. So I'll come back next year with the answers, but I don't have those yet.
Thank you.
On the left is what wound up being maybe one of the most popular reasons for this, the capacity for students to ask questions. Again, there's just a few always had the gumption to ask a question in class. Now 2/3 of the students are asking questions. And I am blessed with a teaching assistant in my class of 250 who's typing constantly, doing spin control on my lecture, basically. And this is excellent because the students ask the questions when they have them. They don't have to wait till after class to office hours. They can pose the question. And even if I didn't have a teaching assistant, I would argue there's still value in the capacity to ask the question when you have it. Then I or someone can go back and answer those questions after class, and everyone is going to see the questions and the answers, but you don't see who asked the question. And that simple act of keeping them anonymous has really reinforced the concept of leveling the playing field. Everyone, whether you're comfortable with this topic or not, can be involved and participate in class. And that sort of act of participation is valuable, particularly if you're taking a class that you're not comfortable with. Yes?
Well, is there a function for, like one of those, right, says what slide are we on? For other students to weigh in and answer that if...
Yeah, I should say we don't do anything unless an instructor comes to us and says, I would like this added. And we already had a few who've asked for that. What we've been asked to do is offer the capacity that other students could answer these questions, and then all students could actually vote on which answers were most useful. And you could use that as a way to engage students even more. But that's sort of beyond my capacity to imagine how I use that in class, but we have enough requests for that. We certainly will add it. We did allow for a while that you could see questions as they were coming in, and then as we answered them, you'd see the answer pop up. But that was a disaster because the students quickly understood. A class of 400, they quickly picked up on the fact that one could write a silly sentence and someone else could write another silly sentence, and before you could get in to modify or control it, this streaming thing became quite a distraction in the classroom. So we decided to keep it a more modified, modulated sort of system. But I'm sure there are ways we could do what you're talking about. All right, so we've done it. And as with many things, the reason I started this was because I applied to the National Science Foundation some years ago to do research on this and got soundly rejected. If any of you are reviewers. Soundly rejected because they argued that if students had laptops in the classroom, life as we know it would end. Students would go off and do Facebook and everything else under the sun, and they would not stay focused on class. So I set about to start doing research because, you know, I understood their logic. Just to understand, to do the research, what would happen? How bad could it get if everybody had a laptop in class? So we created this version of lecture tools and released it to the students at the University of Michigan, and as an optional product. You can use it in class or not use it in class. Here's what it does, kind of like I did just a moment ago. And the next day, 92% of the students showed up with laptops. We took wireless network to its knees. It just stopped working altogether. Fortunately, the good people who do that wireless stuff came in, they added more access points, whatever they do, and after that it worked fine. So now I have, imagine a class, looks like typing school with 90% of the students with laptops. And what happens then? How much do the students go off and do other things? First, let me show you, by the way, what things the students can do with lecture tools. I should have been showing this before. The students will see your slides. They'll have your slides to carry home. They're in the cloud, so anywhere they go, they can log in and see lecture and see the slides. They take notes that are synchronized with the slide. They change slides. There's a blank screen over here, and you have each notes attached to each slide. And you can move through. You can navigate through the slides with a sort of pull-out menu here. Move up and down through the slides. I said before, you can indicate when you're confused. You can indicate which slides you think are important. And then you go filter by confusing or important slides here as you need to. You can draw on the slide. You click a picture here and you can draw with your tablet or whatever you got. Draw on the slide as well. They can draw on your slides and save their own drawings and their own notes. They can move between classes up here. They can certainly move between lectures over there. Additionally, in the versions that will be released here by the end of the year, you'll be able to click on the slide if you podcast your class with, say, Camtasia Relay or any number of the other ones. You'll be able to click on the slide. It'll take you to that spot in the podcast where the lecture was. So you're connecting now the podcast with what you're doing in class and your instructor's slides, trying to pull together the many resources you might need for class. So here's what happened in the class with these sorts of tools available. First, it's going to change your class. Students where lecture tools have been used will start bringing their laptops to class, and you'll be startled at how many actually do have laptops. It was quite an eye-opening for us. If you provide a system that has sufficient value, they will bring their laptops to class because they see its value of organizing their notes and participating in class. So some 80% of students typically will show up with laptops. So death as we know it has been initiated in the classroom here. We did surveys then where we do spot analyses every so often lectures. We have a survey at the end of the class saying, okay, in class today, how interesting did you think the topic was? What was the instructor's style today? Was it more lecture-centric or more activity-based? How are you feeling today? Oh, by the way, what other things did you do on the laptop today? Facebook, email, messaging, a long list. And we keep track of this on selected days throughout the semester to see what does affect student engagement. We also ask them how engaged they felt in the lecture that day. What does affect their engagement? What we found is that students will freely admit that they are more likely to be distracted with a laptop in front of them. And you all probably heard this joke from now, I tell it every time. But that's precisely why I take a laptop to my faculty meetings. You take your laptop to do other things unless they use the word Samson and salary in the same sentence, then I'm going to be doing what I have to do to get ready for whatever's next. So students do the same thing. They have their laptops and they're having personal issues, gosh knows what. They will use their laptops for other things if there's what they feel is a lull in activity. And that's not surprising. Now, what was surprising was the next question. We asked them, has the use of laptops in class increased your engagement in class? And we thought the answer would be negative. And we're finding over now multiple semesters and multiple disciplines and courses that students feel much more engaged because of the access to these tools. Now let's stop and review. On one hand, the students freely admit they're more distracted by the technology or have the capacity to be distracted. On the other hand, they're saying that, however, they're more engaged. And my takeaway is it's probably not the technology that's going on here. The fact is that if you could offer a class, and probably many of you do, where you ask students questions, you have them raise their hand or raise cards, you do other things, and you engage them in the material, that will also increase engagement in the classroom. Any way that you have to increase the amount of communication is going to increase the amount of student engagement in that class. Lecture tool simply allows me to do it more easily. Now you can ask the questions that maybe you wouldn't do otherwise. I can ask you questions and have everybody respond that maybe I couldn't do otherwise. It makes it much easier for me. They didn't hire me at the University of Michigan. They didn't hire you at the University of Nebraska because you're excellent at teaching. Well, maybe they did for some of you. They certainly didn't for me. They hired us to do research, and our plates are full. But we all want to teach well. We just don't necessarily have the time to go read the educational literature or go to seminars on educational topics. So what we're trying to do with this tool is to make it easier for anyone to walk in and still offer a class which has elements that are more active learning, where you are encouraged to ask questions and look at the responses and give feedback, the kinds of things which will involve the students more in that topic that's being covered. So this tool is all about what can we do to not make the job more onerous for we as faculty, but in fact to make it easier for us to offer classes in a way where the students get more involved. Now, I cannot show you today, or would I even try to show you, that this is leading to better learning. We have testimonials from faculty who say it's raised grade points by this much or that much. I always take such results with a grain of salt. I think there's so many reasons that things can change in learning in the classroom. I can tell you that in my class, systematically I've offered pretty much the same kind of exam for the first and second exam every year. And those grades have gone up. They have always been averaging 73. The average now is 75. Is that statistically better? I wouldn't say so. I will tell you that they're not learning less. Educational people are going to go nuts now. That's all right. I'm okay with that. The students are far more engaged. They may not be learning more, but they're certainly not learning less, and they're more engaged in my class. And these intro classes with non-majors, really, do I care whether they really know the details of vorticity as the air moves over a mountain? Or am I interested in them being engaged enough so they have the interest to go out and be able to find the information after the class is over to study or explore other topics related to the field?
Have you done any work with motivation as a result of technology?
Okay, I heard a volunteer.
Did you do any work at all with motivation?
Yeah, I guess, again, I don't know what that means. So
that means their perspective on how motivated they are to do the work.
I would be pleased to hear if you could point me to some articles
Sure.
that would inform me about how to do that. I'll steal them. I would like to know more if there are ways to measure motivation that are enrolled. Okay, great. Okay.
Well, it leads to self-efficacy or self-regulation, which of course means it helps across disciplines. I've done some work with that, and that's one of the things that happens with a lot of students, especially the lower quadrant learners.
Can I buy you a drink later? No, this is precisely what I'm hoping for. Is people who have the knowledge can help me understand how to assess this better. That's invaluable for me at the moment. Because I don't have all the answers yet, clearly. What I do have is evidence from the students that they see value in this. And we've asked in Michigan how many they use iClickers at Michigan. Okay, which system would you prefer in your future classes? And you can see, the vast majority in a number of classes would prefer this. The students are able to do more things. instead of buying the gizmo for 40 to 60 bucks that you only can do one thing with, you can use technology they already have, many already have laying around, to do more things and hopefully organize their notes and keep involved in class. So we're seeing a good positive response to this. We created a system, a research version of this tool, and released it about 4 years ago. And by spring of this year, it already had instructors using it at 800 different colleges. And at that point, the National Science Foundation came to us and said, well, you should find a way to make this become self-sufficient, which I think was their way of saying that they weren't going to fund me anymore. So they gave me a grant for something called SBIR, and now we're trying to figure out how we turn this into a model that can be used and for which students or the institution pay a certain fee, and with that the system can be funded for the longer time. And that's the process we're in right now. And as part of that, we're studying what other platform should this run on. Yeah, it runs on laptops now. What about smartphones? Well, I did a survey in class. How many of you had access to a smartphone? This is last year, and it's about half and half that had a smartphone with internet capabilities. And of those, at the bottom, we asked, okay, would you prefer to bring that in? What if we made it so you could answer the questions and ask questions and do many of the things you couldn't? Maybe you could take notes. I hope not. The students can do that thing where they can take notes and not even look at the thing. Maybe they could do that. I didn't want to be part of that. So we asked them that, and they said no. They would prefer the laptop. And I'm guessing because it has more real estate, more room to work with. And why else? But that's what we're learning so far. So we have yet to make it a smartphone version. We made it so, as I say, if you have a cell phone, you can text in your answer in case you don't have an internet-enabled device. We have made it available now on the iPad, and we're pretty excited about this. Right now, it's a web page. You can go to the web page on the iPad, and here's the instructor view on the iPad. We envision the day, and just dream with me for a moment here. We envision the day that you can walk with your iPad or whatever device you have, wireless device, and somehow it could talk to the projector. So then I could walk around the room with a screen with the slides and even draw on it like an overhead projector and talk to the student. I love the overhead projectors. I could face the audience.
We're doing those now.
Yeah. Ooh, what?
iPad 2.
iPad 2.
Apple TV. And AirPlay.
A drink for him, too? Really? Yeah. So this talks to the Apple TV. And then you go talk to that.
HDMI to the projector.
We're going to run home right now. That's precisely when we can do that. Then let's do it. Let's just do it. So this is a workbench. So if we get this Apple TV thing, it's not in here, is it?
No.
If you do that, then sweet. We can now walk around the room, ask questions, draw on the screen, and it shows them instantly here. Love this. I just love this job. Right. So now that that's true, here's what you can do. You can show your slides and ask questions and draw, presumably draw on your iPad. We describe, and as if you had an overhead projector, and now you are no longer tethered, as I am at the moment, to the podium. And in that environment, you can walk out in the audience. Students, by the way, when you walk around in the audience, they're far less likely to go off task because they get nervous about that. So that would be an excellent addition to what we're doing now. So here's here's a question I asked just this past week in classes. Having gone through a huge explanation of pressure gradient and Coriolis force, so the student, we hope, would now be able to understand precisely how is it the winds move relative to high and low pressure. After 20 minutes of this discussion, I thought I'd nailed it. I just threw the chalk down and did the victory dance. I thought I really had done the job. I asked the students, okay, now, given what you know, where would you expect winds from the north? Here's the results I got. And it's sobering. It is just sobering to really, truly see how much students do understand from a lecture. And that's the walkaway I want you to have here, is we think we teach well, and I'm guaranteeing many of you are superb lecturers. That's wholly different than students being good learners because of a good lecture. So this just allows us that sort of ground truth of what the students have gleaned from the lecture, of how much understanding they have. Now, going back to you, because you understand educational literature, we've been trying to do research on metacognition as well, and often I'll ask the students, I should have done this, after that discussion, well, how well now do you feel like you understand the roles of pressure gradient, Coriolis, and wind? And they would put it from 0 to 10, how well they feel they understand that. And then you pose some series of questions which actually challenges their understanding. And then come back and say, okay, how many did you get right? And if it was different from what you, and your confidence level at the beginning, then what went wrong? What didn't you understand? How do you know what you don't know? And you challenge the students to think about the methods they use to do that self-efficacy thing. How do they understand what they don't understand? You can help them with tools like this to go through that process, and this goes well beyond my course, because in the process they start thinking about how they learn. And these tools offer those opportunities to go in that direction. The other thing I want to point out is we're not satisfied to sit with just what's happening in the classroom. We do not try to replicate the processes that go on with groups like Blackboard or Sakai or Moodle. These are learning management systems. They have grade books. They have gobs of stuff. That wasn't our goal. Our goal is what are you doing in the classroom. Those other systems help them organize their classes and getting to the class. We want to be all about what you do in the classroom. And now we're growing that a bit to think about how do we support what you're doing in the classroom. And we are working with a number of publishers right now where they're actually letting us ingest their textbooks into our system. And this is an example of one we're doing for a statistics class in Michigan. This is a class of 1,600 students each semester. And their challenge to me was they wanted a system that the textbook would be available, the students could do their homework, where the questions would be presented to the students as free response questions and would be tied to the textbook. So you'd be in the middle of a question and you'd be able to click a button and open up the textbook to the relevant section that you might get some help in doing the homework. And at the same time, make it easier for the university or for the students, the graduate students, to be able to grade the outcomes from their homework. So this is a view of where that's going. The book has been ingested here. We have a few books now we're using in various pilot courses where the students can access the textbook, they can search the textbook, they can grab material from the textbook and drop it into the notebook back in lecture tools. Eventually these two will be merged in a way that even in class, as you're typing, as you upload your slides. Remember we took all the words off your slides and put them in the database? I forgot to mention that before, but we stick those in the database. Once we have those words, we know what you're lecturing about. At that point, we can automatically start making links to the textbook, because we can compare the words in your slides against the words in the index of the textbook, and automatically, by uploading your slides, you'll be telling the students what pages and sections they ought to be looking at in the textbook. Likewise, the students typing their notes in lecture tools, we sniff what they're typing. And if they're typing the magic word, then they could automatically be linked to a place in the textbook that they want to relate that word to. So we can link now the content of the textbook. More than the textbook, if you have PDFs of your own stuff, you'd be able to upload that into the system, and we accept that, create a book for you, and your students can then link between their notes, your slides, and your materials in class. We're just wanting to think about what are the tools that students may want to have in the next 5 years. And it's just a lot of fun thinking out loud about what all those tools might be, and I'm hoping this inspires you or makes you think about the many other things we haven't thought about that you might want to be able to couple with what's going on in the classroom. How do you take a room this size, full of students, and have them be actively involved in the material as you're presenting it? That's the challenge that we face here. and we're hoping this is a collaboration among many of us to think about how best to do that. And this is just the iPad version of what the student sees. They're taking notes and interacting with the slides. So the outcome we have from our research so far is given the choice of banning them, ignoring them, or engaging the material of these laptops, we see this opportunity to engage the material and get the students to be more involved in lecture. Banning them, it's just silly. Let's get over it. I mean, you're going to ban them, really? The kids are going to bring them something small and have it under the desk. They're going to be doing it anyway. That's just ridiculous. The other option is ignore them. I invite you to walk into any large lecture hall here at the university and stand there if the instructor has just ignored the fact that you have laptops. Kids will be all over the place. They will not be on task much at all. But if you actively take over that laptop, you usurp that laptop from them, and you're going to use that as part of the class, there's far more involvement and far more engagement that we're seeing in the classroom. And I suspect this is going to be true as more and more types of devices become available. We built this in cahoots with something called IMS Global, which is a consortium of universities creating tools that allow interoperability, something called learning technology interoperability. Therefore, lecture tools works with a variety of these learning management systems, including Blackboard, I guess you use here. So the students would log into the Blackboard system. There's a button then for lecture tools, brings them into lecture tools. They don't have to sign in again. It's all able to be coordinated. And in the version coming out in next spring, it actually will allow us also to send the results from whatever they do in lecture tools back into the gradebook in Blackboard as well. So you'll have the power there to go both ways. We have set up a site here. We're hoping this has stimulated you enough to think about learning more or participating. The best way to do this is to set up webinars with either departments or individuals or groups of faculty. You can easily go to this site. We set up a special site for Nebraska here. You can set this up and fill in your information and get these webinars are free. Our job at the National Science Foundation is to find kindred spirit faculty around the country who have a sense of humor, willing to play along with us. Try this in some classrooms and see how it goes. So we're reaching out and looking for those of you who would be open to trying this in classrooms, and we can certainly make that work. We also have, if you're one of those people who I'm embarrassed to tell you, I told my class one day, I'll send you all a twit. So if you are of that ilk where you follow Twitter or Facebook, we also have a place there you can get the latest updates on what's happening with lecture tools as well. One other story I must tell you is that in an experiment, I know some of you here are interested in distance learning. I have enough time trying to do face-to-face learning, so I've yet to really try that. But in an experiment I'm doing this year with other faculty, we use some software called Wirecast that I have nothing to do with, which runs on my laptop. And with that, I basically can broadcast what's on my screen or any videos or any cameras attached to a streaming server that I have sitting on my campus. And then students can log in and watch class live, even if they don't come to class. They log into this. This is a system called Wowza or something. They log into that, and they either by themselves or they get together in groups of 2 to 4, or they can come to class in the old-fashioned way and watch class as well. But the beauty of this is that even if you're sick and away, or an athlete and away, you can still participate live during class, because as I ask a question, you can use lecture tools to answer it. You can ask questions from wherever you are. So we're just wondering aloud here that instead of offering a class of 400, is there value in maybe offering 10 classes of 40, where students could watch this in smaller groups, be able to talk to each other, participate in different ways, and sort of pods, they call it class podding, that they could do that and still be able to participate live with you as the instructor wherever you are. And this is my sort of baby step towards distance learning, to try to explore how this might work. I actually give extra credit on certain lectures each semester, extra credit for not coming to class. Students just think he's lost it. But when we do that, the object is you're going to sit in groups of 2 to 4, follow along class, participate that way, and then we ask surveys of those situations, just as we did when they come to class, to see how does it change your engagement, how does it change your attentiveness. Do you feel like you learned as much? Do you feel as immersed in the class? And we don't have those results either, but we're just beginning to explore how we could use this kind of tool for at least not so distance learning, if not distance learning eventually. And that work is also a work in progress. All right. Very good. Well, that's the material that I wanted to show you today, and it's a quick overview of the kind of research we're doing, and an invitation then that you hopefully would communicate with me about how this might or might not work in your class, the concerns you have, the value you see, and all this feedback you can give us is really appreciated. And you can reach me. I didn't put it on the slide, but I'll make sure to see you out. Reach me at Samson, SAMSON, at umich.edu. I appreciate you taking the time to give me some feedback on that. So with that, I open it up for questions. Sir?
You had a slide maybe about 6 or 8 ago of conclusions, and the third conclusion was that there was increased learning.
Okay, yes.
How do you measure that?
Yes. Well, the increased learning, I shouldn't probably put that in there. So the increased learning comes from, again, the reports that we're getting from other classes that I can't corroborate. But
okay. The ones you refer to. Okay.
The instructor in statistics, for example, the 1,600 students, through use of this system, has seen a letter grade increase in the students, same exams.
Right.
That, given it's coming from a statistics professor, I should trust it, I guess, but I guess I'm always surprised by good news. So I want to know more about it, really. But so we are seeing that, but details yet to come. Please.
Can you invent like flash animation within PowerPoint so that the students could use this animation to play with them?
Yes, not yet, but very soon. But you have to think differently about what a slide is. A slide is going to be more than just a PowerPoint slide here. We're soon allow you to have this be an animation. This could be Flash. This could be QuickTime. This could be a hyperlink. This could be a whole web page in this space here. So you have to rethink what is it that you want to present at each stage of your lecture.
But please don't make it Flash.
Well,
Flash won't play on the iPad.
Yeah, that's
moving away from mobile Flash.
We are. This is all written in HTML5. We've avoided Flash largely, but if an instructor chooses to upload Flash, then the students simply wouldn't be able to see it on an iPad or those devices that can't handle Flash.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's a lot of animation in chemistry that are like Flash-based that you can just embed in your slides.
Yeah, and that'll work if you have a laptop. Sure. You just have the limitation that some students wouldn't have access to that. But they have iPads, so say tough luck. Yes, sir.
So the slides have to be in PowerPoint, or could they be like a PDF or something?
Yeah. You can upload either your PowerPoint file, or I do everything in Keynote. I save it as PDF, and you can upload a PDF instead. Yes?
Have you thought about the free response? I love free response. But, if you have 200 kids, that becomes hard to analyze. So I was wondering, I don't know what it's called, but if you thought about using this analytical tool that everybody's showing nowadays, these like word map things, where the words that keep popping up are becoming bigger and more. You think about using that as a way to quickly for the instructor to analyze what the student has said?
No, because no instructor has come and asked us to do that, but if you were going to do research on it, we could certainly make that a possibility. I don't think it's as hard as you think. When you have a class of 200 and they input their answers, you get a screen which just simply shows you as many as will fit on the screen, randomly chosen, and then you can scroll through as many as you want. I find that if I simply show about 6 or 7, it probably represents many of the answers I get from all the students. It's been, I think, good enough. It's an area of research about whether I need to show them all or not. Yes, sir.
My understanding is that at this moment, this is free of charge.
That would, thank you for that.
But NSF told you to change your business model,
yeah,
and gather enough participants, hook enough people,
yeah,
so that you can start charging them.
Yeah.
So what are you expected to charge them?
Yes. Thank you. It's my business manager. Thank you for reminding me I should talk about that. I'm less comfortable with that part. But the charges is right now is $14.95 for a student for the whole semester. And the thinking was that clicker costs, what, $40 to $60. And so we're sort of amortizing that over the 4 years. That's per student. Now, if the institution, say the geology department, opted to buy 200 seats, then it's far greater, the big reduction in the cost. It's something around $15 a year for each student to use the tool. So it's there's a cost involved, but you have to be realistic about the fact that it takes energy to keep this thing alive, and NSF probably isn't going to pay for it forever. So that's our best guess. If you have a better business model, we'd love to hear about business as well, because it's not our strength.